Okay, so we've got our level select system working, but what happens if we have a whole bunch of levels? At the moment we've got just our 2 levels here, but let's say you had 100 levels in your game. I'm just going to duplicate this one here. So obviously maybe you'd line them up on a second row down here or whatever, but you would end up with levels maybe way off this way if you're going horizontal, or maybe if you wanted to go vertical you would end up with levels way down here somewhere, or oppositely way up high. The point is it would be way off the screen so you can't see it. So what we want to do is make it a way so we can actually browse them around, and to do that we can use Unity's scroll view system, which is really handy to allow us to use. So I'm going to go to my canvas here and I'm going to right click and create a UI not scroll bar, that's the wrong one, UI scroll view down here, and I'm going to make this pretty big. I'm going to make this take up most of the screen here like so, and first thing I'm going to do is make it look a bit nicer. So I'm going to go, if I drop down my scroll view here, my viewport, I'm going to change the source image to be the same block image we've used before. So we're going to pop that one in there. Let's make it a bit taller here as well. Actually, just looking at this, go up a little bit if it'll let me. Oh no, scroll view, there we go, I had the wrong one selected. Go up a little bit, and then on the handles for this, so let's select the scroll bar horizontal here. At the moment it's kind of hard to see because the area is roughly about the same size here. The one thing about the handles on this is that they will automatically adjust to show the area around you in your scene. So if I go to my viewport here, viewport is the visible area that will be shown in your game. If I drop this down to content, content here is the area where we can place stuff that will be shown around in our game. So I'm going to drag this out and make it much bigger, and you can see, hopefully it's very faint at the moment, but when I drag that bigger you can see the handlebar size. If you just pay attention right here, when I drag this out, the handlebar size changes because it's trying to adjust to fit the area that we potentially want to show. So now that I've made it a bit bigger so we can see the handles here, if I go to my scroll bar horizontal, what I'm going to do is, as I've done before, I'm going to change the source image here, and the source image refers to the background area of our handlebar. So what I'm going to use is, from down here there's a gray box value, and I'm going to pop that one on there like so. And then I'm going to go inside sliding area here to the handle, and I'm going to change the UI sprite we're using here to green handle like so. And I'm also going to go back up to my horizontal and I'm going to drag this up a bit so it's a bit more visible to our players. And then the next thing I need to do is on the scroll bar, which is on the scroll bar horizontal game object, I want to change the transition from color tint to sprite swap, much like we've done before. So then I'm going to say go to blue handle when we're highlighted, go to red handle when we're pressed, and go to yellow handle when we're selected. So we're going to do the same thing for our scroll bar vertical here. Let's drag this out a bit more, get the gray box into here. We're going to do our sprite swap, and again we're going to use blue handle for it highlighted, red handle for pressed, and yellow handle for selected. And of course we haven't actually set the default one here yet, so let's go to our handle and give it the green handle like so. So now if I go ahead and play here, we'll see what I can do in this scroll areas. I can click and drag it around. I can use the handles too to move it around, but I can click and drag in the area and you can see the handlebars will move. Now of course at the moment there's nothing in here that we can see, so let's go ahead and get our 3 level select buttons here. I'm going to highlight them and I'm going to put them into the content area. So now we have our 2 here, and we have our 3rd one which is way over here somewhere, but that's outside the range of our current content that is visible. So I can click and drag this out more, but it would be ideal if we could see the content that we have inside. So it's really handy. We can actually go to our viewport, and if we turn off mask, it will show anything that should be hidden in here. So then let's go to content. I'm going to drag this out. Oh, I just realized these buttons are set to the middle. That we want to set these to the top left corner like so. And then I'm going to get my content again, and I'm going to click and drag this out so it covers that button. So we're covering the entire area here. And then now if I press play, I can click and drag this around and the levels will move around in here. And I can drag this over here and I can see my extra button over on this side. And you might notice that when it's kind of halfway there, it's spilling over the edge. That's because we turned off the mask. So let's go and turn the mask back on again, like so. So now when I play, there we go. We see the objects only inside the actual view area. So perfect, that's great. That's what we want to have happen. But one other thing is that we also want to keep these objects fairly well laid out. And we don't want to have to go and manually place every single one as we go into our position. Because as I said, if you have 100 levels, laying out each one into the right correct place can get a bit tedious. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go into my content area here. And just before I do anything, just let's make note that our level select buttons are 250 wide by 250 high. And then in the content area here, what I'm going to do is add what's called a grid layout group. So I'm going to add component grid layout group. So as soon as I do that, it will try and put the buttons that we have onto a little grid here. So we got a 1, 2, and a 2 there, and they've all been squashed in, and our stars are all gone. And that's because it's made them all the same size, and it's made them all 100 by 100. But we know we had our buttons set to be 250 by 250. So let's set them back up to 250 by 250. So when we do that, our stars appear, but they're now still a little bit too close to each other. They're overlapping and our stars are getting cut off at the top. So let's add some spacing between them. So 100 on both sides. So we've got 100 by 100. And then we're also going to say on the padding here, we're going to put 100 on top, and on the left, let's go with 100. Actually, we'll make it a bit smaller on the left. We'll say 75 there, so it's a bit closer to the edge. And there we go. Now we've got our buttons nicely laid out. And one of the really handy things about this is if I just keep copying these on our grid, it'll just keep adding them in layer by layer by layer. Now obviously it's really important. You will still need to make sure that the content area covers these. But if I go up here to my content area, and if I just turn off my mask again on the viewport, if I go to my content area, if you adjust this, if you move it over enough, the grid items will actually resize to fit in. So I can make it nice and tall. And here I'm just making it tall enough to cover all of those. Or if I make it short, I can drag it out really far to get all our items in place. So either way, we can make it so that we have lots of objects that we're able to drag around. So if I go ahead and play here now, you can see I can scroll all of these up. Oh, let's turn off our viewport mask, or sorry, turn on our viewport mask again. If I scroll all these up, there we go. We've a whole bunch of level 1s that we can navigate around. Now one other couple little minor settings we want to do on our scroll view. I want to add a little outline to my scroll view first of all, because I want to make it stand out from the background a little bit. And I'm also going to, no, actually, rather than add an outline, let's undo that, remove that. I'm going to use the gray box for this background element. There we go. And I'm going to put the color up much, much higher. So there we go. Now we've got a bit of a line around the edge and it kind of makes a little bit more sense. One other thing I want to do is adjust some of the scroll settings. So if we have our scroll view selected in the scroll rect here, I'm going to change the elasticity to be 0.05, just so it's not quite as bouncy around as it was before. And one other thing to note is that if you're on a computer and you're using your mouse and you can scroll, you want to scroll the bars with your mouse. If I press play here, if I try to scroll it, I'm doing a big massive scroll and it only moves a tiny amount. I don't really know why the default in Unity is to have this tiny amount of movement, but what we're going to do is go over here to scroll sensitivity and put it to 25. So now when I scroll, it scrolls at a much more reasonable rate. Now I can play around with that and make it different as well if I want to, but I'm pretty happy with that. And I can also click and drag it like this. And now we have slightly bounciness and it feels a lot nicer to move around between these different levels in our game. So perfect, that's it. We've now got a good way to browse the different levels that we want to have in our game.